The Zoria junkland stretched farther than the eye could see, a continent-wide sprawl of discarded machines and broken dreams. Starships long since silenced lay in twisted heaps, their hulls rusting under a gray-orange sky thick with fumes and metallic dust. If there was beauty here, it was a quiet kind, an ancient, crumbling majesty hiding beneath the scars. Jack Halverson had never called himself a hero. He was a mechanic, a wanderer, a Terran with a sharp mind for machinery and a quiet disdain for titles. The galaxy had taken much from him, his unit, his brother, his peace, and so he drifted from system to system, fixing what he could and salvaging what he couldn't. Zoria was the last stop on his list for the quarter, a contract from a derelict moon station looking to recover a power core rumored to be buried deep in the junklands. He arrived on foot, having parked his crawler a few kilometers back. The wind hissed through the twisted towers of scrap like a whispering ghost. His boots crunched on fractured steel, sensor goggles casting a blue hue across the debris. He moved with the precision of someone who had worked in war zones and abandoned colonies, deliberate, cautious, and always scanning the shadows. And that's when he heard it. A sound. Not mechanical, not environmental. A voice. Soft, melodic, barely audible beneath the wind. Jack froze. He scanned the area again, but his HUD showed no thermal signatures. Still, the sound lingered, weaving through the wreckage like a thread pulling him forward. He followed it. Twisting through a jagged maze of crumpled transport shells and splintered hovercraft frames, he descended into a hollow where silence felt heavier, like the junk had swallowed all noise. Then he saw her. She was perched atop a pile of crushed hulls, half hidden beneath the slanted roof of a collapsed freighter. She wore a cloak stitched from scrap cloth and heat-resistant padding, her limbs wrapped in bindings that looked more armor than clothing. Her skin shimmered faintly, an iridescent tone he didn't recognize, and her eyes glowed dimly in the shadows. Her expression didn't waver as she watched him. She didn't look frightened, only tired. Jack raised both hands, unarmed, though he didn't need to say it. She beat him to the silence. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. Jack tilted his head. "Neither are you." A faint smile touched her lips, an echo of something long buried. Then she disappeared behind the freighter's curve. Jack followed. By the time he reached her makeshift shelter, she had already seated herself on a crate, pulling a dented respirator from her neck and resting her hands in her lap. "I'm not a threat," Jack said, kneeling a safe distance away. "Just a mechanic." "Good," she replied. "Threats don't last long here." He studied her, noting the bruises across her knuckles, the scar down her left forearm, and the brace strapped awkwardly around her ankle. Whoever she was, she had survived in this wasteland far longer than most could dream of. "You got a name?" he asked. She looked up at him. "Lias." "Jack," he offered. "You live out here?" Her jaw tightened. "I exist out here." And in that moment, Jack Halverson understood two things. First, that this woman had not chosen the junklands. And second, someone had left her here to be forgotten. But she wasn't forgotten. Not anymore. Jack returned the next day carrying water, food rations, and a portable solar blanket wrapped in scavenged thermal mesh. He didn't expect gratitude. He didn't need it. But Lias was there again, sitting in the same spot, legs drawn up beneath her cloak, her gaze distant. She didn't ask why he'd come back. She didn't have to. "I've seen a lot of things in this galaxy," Jack said as he unpacked the blanket. "But never someone with a forge-built brace wrapped in salvaged coil wiring." "You made that yourself?" Lias glanced down at her left leg, the metal brace catching a glint of daylight. "After the first year, my knee stopped working right. I had to keep moving." Jack examined it with cautious respect. "That's an old Paxian circuit. Half this galaxy couldn't read that without a schematic." She shrugged. "When you've got nothing but junk and time, you learn things." She spoke with calm detachment, but Jack recognized the fatigue beneath her tone, the weariness of someone who had spoken to no one in far too long. He tossed her a ration bar. She caught it with ease. "You get visitors often?" he asked. "Only scavengers, thieves, a few bounty hunters. They don't last long." She opened the bar and bit into it. "Most people assume anyone left here is already dead." Jack glanced around. The junkyard was massive, unending. "Why are you still here?" She looked up slowly, eyes narrowing. "Because my father put me here." The words dropped like metal. Jack said nothing, allowing her silence to expand. Laya set the bar down, her fingers curling into fists. I disobeyed him. I wouldn't take the oaths, wouldn't marry the soldier he chose, so he sent me away. Not to prison, not to exile, just here. To die? Jack asked softly. No, to vanish. Dying would have been too simple. Jack's throat tightened. He looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the soot and grime, the fierce independence in her voice, she was something rare. Not a victim, a survivor. I'm not here to rescue you, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Then why are you here? Because no one should be forgotten like this, and if you want out, I'll help. She didn't answer at first. Her fingers tapped the edge of the crate rhythmically. Her eyes didn't blink. Then she whispered, Why would you care? Jack met her gaze. Because someone once found me in a place not too different from this one, pulled me out, gave me tools, and that's what I do now, fix broken things. Laya stood, walked to him slowly, the brace making her gait uneven but determined. If you help me, she said, you'll make enemies you can't see coming. I'm used to that, Jack replied, but I don't leave people in the dirt. She didn't smile, but she nodded. And the junkyard, for the first time in years, no longer felt like the end of her world. Jack didn't ask to stay. Laius didn't ask him to leave. For 3 nights, he camped near her makeshift shelter beneath the collapsed bulk of a decommissioned freighter. She watched him repair old servos like he was performing some quiet religion. He watched her scavenge for nutrient gels and pulse capacitors with the practiced eye of someone who knew exactly which broken machine still whispered life. They didn't speak much at first, only when necessary. But Jack noticed the changes. On the 2nd day, Laius shared a portion of her salvaged battery charge. On the 3rd, she let him examine her brace without flinching. He worked for hours, fingers coated in grease, tools clutched between teeth, fusing his Terran toolkit with the alien complexity of her device. It was a delicate operation. Her brace had been cobbled together from a dozen different civilizations' technologies, including a power regulator from an ancient Varnic scout drone that hadn't seen production in over 2 centuries. You weren't just surviving, he murmured, adjusting a coupling. You were engineering miracles. Laius looked away, her expression unreadable. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice, he said. You just made the hard one. She said nothing, but her silence no longer cut like a blade. That evening, they sat together in a half-intact crew cabin salvaged from the wreck of a mining barge. The walls still bore half-burnt markings of its origin, Crucible Sector 14. They shared a heater core, the orange glow flickering across their faces. Outside, wind howled through the valley of scrap towers like a wolf in mourning. You said you wouldn't rescue me, Laya said suddenly. Jack nodded. Still true. She studied him in the firelight. Then why did you stay? He looked into the distance, eyes glazed with memory. Because the world that exiled you isn't the only one that matters. And you think you can give me a better one? No, Jack said. I think you already built it. I'm just offering a way out of the ruins. She leaned back, arms crossed. And if I fall apart outside this place, then I'll help you rebuild. Again, and again, however many times it takes. He didn't mean it as romance. He meant it as a promise, but the way Laius looked at him in that moment, steady, unflinching, something shifted. She didn't smile, she didn't lean in, but a wall came down, one she hadn't realized she was still holding. That night, for the first time in years, she slept without her tool knife under her pillow. The next morning, a sky drone passed overhead. It came fast and low, silent, almost elegant, its black armor catching the light for less than a second before vanishing into the cloud haze. Jack stood frozen by the outer barricade, listening. No sound, no alarms, but Laius was already running. She led him into a hidden crevice beneath a gutted carrier ship, ducking through tangled wire bundles and collapsed hulls. The space was barely large enough to sit. In. Jack crouched beside her, listening to the pulse in his own ears. That drone wasn't yours, he whispered. She shook her head. It's a warden, for my father's house. Your father still sends surveillance? No, she said, her voice sharp. He doesn't have to. Someone else is looking now. Jack turned to her, frowning. Why would they be looking now after all this time? Laius didn't respond right away. Her hand drifted to the data puck hanging from her belt, a small, weather-beaten drive Jack hadn't noticed before. What's on that? He asked. Insurance, she said. Evidence. plans, things I was never supposed to see. I downloaded it the day before he exiled me. I never had a chance to use it. You think someone found out you're alive? I think someone wants to make sure I don't become a problem. Jack's eyes narrowed. Then we don't wait for them to find us. We move first. She looked at him, stunned by the sudden certainty in his voice. Where? She asked. To my crawler. I've got an uplink. We send that data. We make it loud. But once it's out, there's no coming back. Good, Jack said, because you're not going back. They moved quickly, gathering supplies and disassembling her shelter. Lias paused only once, touching the battered hull that had kept her alive for so many years. There was no sentiment in her face, just recognition. A place she had survived, not lived. The journey to Jack's crawler was treacherous. Security bots littered the outer zones now, likely sent to track the drone's scan. They took back paths, shadowed by ruined walker frames and shattered orbital pods. At one point, they heard voices, not mechanical but human, a small group dressed in mercenary gear scanning for power signatures. Lias and Jack froze behind an upturned engine core. I recognize the crest, she whispered. House Marikai, my father's rivals. They want the data. They want me silenced. They didn't engage, not yet, not while they were outnumbered and exposed. Hours later, beneath the failing sky of Zoria, they reached the crawler. The sun was sinking. The junkyard breathed like a thing alive. Inside the cockpit, Jack powered up the systems while Lias fed the data puck into the transmitter. The console blinked to life, and then the screen went black. The comms were being jammed. Someone's here, Jack said, reaching for his sidearm. Lias gritted her teeth. Then let them come. Jack smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The crawler's proximity sensors blared seconds before the first plasma bolt struck the side panel. Jack ducked instinctively, grabbing the blaster from under the console as the second shot sent a tremor through the floor. Dust and fragments rained down from the cabin's ceiling. Lias was already moving, her reflexes honed not by training but by necessity. She kicked open the rear hatch and rolled out into the red-tinged light, crouching low behind a fractured stabilizer vane. From the edge of the junkyard clearing came the unmistakable crunch of bootsteps. Three shapes, silhouettes in scavenger gray and riot armor black, advanced with a practiced grace. Their helmets bore no markings, their intent didn't require translation. Jack recognized the type. They weren't bounty hunters or hired thugs. They were extractors. Quiet, precise, always clean, never merciful. They're here for you, he hissed, sliding beside Lias. She didn't respond. She was focused, eyes scanning the wreckage, lips drawn into a line of concentration. Her hand moved to her belt, pulling out a compact EMP shard. She glanced at Jack. Cover me. He didn't question it. As Lias darted left, he rose from cover, firing 2 quick shots at the approaching figures. One ducked, the other staggered as a bolt caught his shoulder. Lias moved like a ghost, using her brace to pivot with surprising agility as she vaulted a fallen panel and lobbed the EMP shard into their midst. A crackle of blue light exploded. One helmet short-circuited. The merc dropped, twitching. The others reacted too late. Lias was already on the nearest, striking hard with a salvaged torque wrench. It connected with a metallic thud that echoed across the scrapyard. Jack fired again, catching the last assailant in the leg before he could recover. The man fell with a shout, clutching his knee. The silence after the fight was jarring. Jack approached the wounded mercenary, keeping his weapon trained. Who sent you? The man said nothing. Just stared with a blank, defiant calm. Who paid you? Jack pressed. The merc spat at the ground and grinned. You're too late. She's already dead. She just doesn't know it yet. Jack struck him once with the butt of his blaster. The man dropped. Lias said nothing. She walked over, picked up one of their drop data spikes and activated it. The spike flared to life with a projection, her father's sigil pulsating in a ring of rotating glyphs. He's watching again, she murmured. He always was. Jack looked at her, breath catching. He's trying to finish the exile, she nodded. No, he's trying to make sure the exile never ends. They returned to the crawler. The system was still jammed, but Jack had other ideas. He rerouted power from the auxiliary core, bypassed the signal inhibitor, and launched a burst beacon deep into orbit. Lias watched as the signal bar pulsed slowly, then steadily. A warning sent to every system Jack still had clearance in. You really think that'll do anything? she asked. I think it tells him this isn't going to be quiet, Jack said. And nothing terrifies men like your father more than noise they can't control. Lias turned away from the window. Then let's scream. They didn't stay long. The ambush had confirmed it. Her father hadn't forgotten her, and he certainly hadn't forgiven her. Jack patched the crawler, reinforced the hull with scavenged alloy plating, and recalibrated the long-range jump drive. They needed distance, time, a place to breathe without watching the sky for every shadow. But Lias had other ideas. As they navigated the ghost ring of the Drosky Drift, where shipwrecks orbited like bones around a dead star, she stood at the command deck, watching the stars pass like strangers. We should go back, she said quietly. Jack glanced over. To what? The exile? The traps? Your father's leash? No, we go back to make him see what he created. Jack was silent for a long moment. Then he exhaled, slow and measured. You want to face him? I want him to understand that I'm not his failure, that I'm his warning. Jack lowered into the pilot's chair, staring into the black beyond the viewport. You don't have to prove anything to him. I'm not trying to prove it, she said. I'm trying to end it. The crawler changed course. 2 days later, they dropped from hyperslip above the moons of Varanth, where her father's reach extended in orbital platforms and planetary codes. It wasn't the capital, it was quieter. A frontier outpost that served as one of the family's old supply ports. He wouldn't expect her there. They docked under a false registration ID. Lias walked off the ramp with her head high and her stride deliberate, the brace no longer a limitation, but an armor of its own. Jack followed close behind, tension in his spine, hand near his weapon, but he never moved ahead of her. This was her war. They breached the control tower with little resistance. The guards weren't expecting trouble. Jack disabled the outer grid while Lias strode into the command center and connected the data spike from the dead mercenary. Her father's face filled the screen moments later, older than she remembered, more distant. His expression faltered only for a second when he saw her. I should have sent more men, he said. You should have sent a message, she replied. You're still angry. No, she said. I'm awake. You've brought a Terran with you, a mechanic? Jack folded his arms. The kind that fixes broken things. Even broken daughters? Especially them. Lias stepped forward. This ends now. You wanted me erased, buried in scrap. You couldn't kill me yourself, so you let time do your work. You chose your exile. I chose to live. You chose to be a coward. There was silence. Then her father spoke, quieter than before. You came here to kill me? She shook her head. No, I came to show you what I've become. And to let you know, you have no more control over what comes next. She uploaded the spike, footage of the ambush, names, routes, payment records, broadcasted not to one terminal, but to every ship and signal tower within range. The platform blared with alerts. He stared at her, defeated not by blade or bullet, but by the simple, horrifying truth that she had survived, and that others would see how. Then the screen went black. Jack and Lias left before the platform could mount a response. As the crawler jumped back into the dark, she didn't speak, not at first. But when the stars returned to motion, she turned to Jack and said, I think this time I can finally stop running. Jack nodded. You didn't just escape him, Lias. She looked forward. I buried him. The stars were different beyond the reach of House Farrell. The space here, past the limits of patrol beacons and noble dominions, felt raw, unfiltered. The worlds were rough-edged, the people unpredictable, the gravity less polite. But Jack could see it in Lias. Her shoulders no longer bore the weight of unseen watchers, and her breath came easier in her sleep. They stayed aboard the crawler, drifting for a time. Not fleeing, just choosing where to land. Jack spent his hours refining their systems, tuning the stabilizers with quiet care. Lias had started building something new, a compact solar forge in the rear cargo hold, powered by scuttled components and a salvaged regulator from a forgotten shuttle. She didn't speak about what she was making, only that it was hers. Every spark that danced from her tools lit the shadows around her with resolve. One night, while mapping out safe systems to explore, Jack found her leaning against the viewport, fingers resting on the curved glass. The reflection of stars moved slowly across her face. I've been thinking, she said, voice low. He looked up from his console. That usually means trouble. I want to find a world with soil, she continued. Real dirt, No towers, no metal ceilings. Jack tilted his head. Not looking to become a farmer, are you? She gave him a rare smile. Maybe just a woman who plants something that isn't rage. He set down the datapad and walked over. You've earned that much. No, she said. I've taken it. That's different. She turned to him fully now. I was waiting to die in that junkyard, Jack. Even after I built, even after I fought, some part of me thought I'd never leave. And then you showed up. Rust on your jacket, oil under your nails. You looked like someone who'd never belonged anywhere. I think that's why I trusted you. Jack didn't reply at first. The hum of the ship filled the silence. I don't think I ever belonged anywhere, he said, until I followed you out of that place. Her hand found his, fingers wrapping around the calloused edge of his palm. So we find somewhere neither of us has to belong. We just be. They chose a world 2 jumps away. Uncharted. Marked only by a forgotten scan as Terra Tempest 94. Half ocean, half stone forests, with a breathable atmosphere and little interest from anyone with power. They landed at dawn. The sky was golden white, the trees bent like old sails. Jack stepped out first, checked the readings, then waved her forward. She moved slowly, unsure, her brace creaking faintly, but when her boots touched the grass-covered earth, she exhaled like a breath she'd held for years. They didn't speak. The silence was sacred. That night, they built a fire near the crawler, not out of need, but tradition. Lias carved symbols into stone with a dull blade while Jack tuned a battered instrument he hadn't touched since the war. She didn't ask what the tune was. He didn't say. Later, they lay under the open sky, side by side, not touching, but close enough that their heat mingled. Lias stared upward. He'll come again, or someone else will. Jack turned his head. Then let them come. She smiled, not as a weapon, but as a promise. It took less than 2 weeks for the silence to fracture. A ship arrived above Terra Tempest 94, unregistered, sleek, fast. Jack spotted it first on the crawler's long-range scan. A vessel too clean to be a pirate, too quiet to be a merchant. Lias didn't flinch. She finished installing the final stabilizer on her solar forge before joining him at the controls. Just one, Jack said. No heat signatures yet. Lias narrowed her eyes at the display. It's a scout, testing the waters. Yours? Not directly. Could be Marikai, could be another house looking to clean up a loose end. Jack powered up the signal scramblers, quietly sliding his blaster to his hip. We could run. We could, she said. But I won't. He turned to her. This isn't exile anymore, Jack, she said. This is home. I won't lose another one. The ship didn't land. It circled, scanned, then drifted to the upper atmosphere. Jack set up decoys, heat signatures laced with random interference. Lias embedded her solar forge with a low-frequency pulse, designed to overload any AI trying to penetrate surface readings. The game was patience now. They were hunted, but they were not helpless. 3 nights later, the scout descended. They met it in the valley. Jack and Lias stood at the edge of a cliff, wind stirring the grass around them. The sleek vessel landed with a sound like thunder swallowed by cloth. The ramp lowered. One figure stepped out, unarmed, tall, dressed in dark robes woven with glimmering thread, a messenger. Lias didn't move. The figure bowed. You are requested, Lady Lias of House Farrell. Not as prisoner, not as exile, as witness. Witness to what? She asked. To the fall, the messenger said. Your father is dead. Jack's fingers twitched near his holster. The figure looked at them both. He died 3 days ago. His council has scattered. You are the last living heir. Silence swept across the valley like a breath held too long. I'm not interested in thrones, Lias said coldly. We didn't ask you to be, the figure replied. Only to choose what happens next. Lias stepped forward, her face unreadable. You've mistaken me for someone who wants power. No, said the messenger. We found someone who survived it. Lias turned, walking away from the ramp. Tell them I buried him years ago. Let the ashes blow where they will. The messenger did not follow. He returned to his ship in silence. As the vessel rose and vanished into the clouds, Jack joined her at the cliff's edge. You all right? He asked. She nodded. I'm not angry anymore. Relieved? Free. She looked out at the endless wilderness before them. Tomorrow we start building, she said. Jack smiled. We already have. And the wind carried the quiet truth away into the stars. The foundations of the outpost took form with slow certainty. A solar forge buzzed near the edge of a stone ridge. melting salvaged alloys into frameworks and supports. Laius worked with an intensity that made words feel like intrusions. Jack knew not to interrupt. He simply handed her the tools she needed, adjusted the plasma cutter settings, and took the night shifts watching the stars for trouble that never came. Their home wasn't a fortress. It wasn't meant to be. It was compact, grounded, open to the elements. There was no need for high walls or blast-proof doors. The threat had passed, and for the first time in years, the only thing chasing Laius was time. And she let it catch her, little by little. She had never known the joy of simple things. Jack noticed the way she marveled at rainfall, as if it were magic. The first time it came, she stood out in it, head tilted back, letting the drops strike her skin. She didn't laugh. Laughter was still a rare currency, but her eyes gleamed like she had been kissed by something holy. One morning, she presented him with a box, roughly welded, imperfect, humming with residual energy. Jack opened it and frowned. Inside was a personal signal beacon, custom-tuned, barely active, but unmistakably encoded with his own biometric code. "You made me a tracker?" he asked. "A lifeline," she said, crossing her arms, "in case the galaxy pulls us apart." He looked up at her, met the guarded look in her eyes, and then held the device like it was a sacred thing. "You know I'm not going anywhere." She nodded. "I know. I just want you to be able to find your way back, always." That night, they sat together on the ledge of the forge, watching the stars again. Not for danger this time, but for rhythm. "You ever wonder what you'd be if none of this happened?" Jack asked, turning the tracker over in his palm. Laius leaned back, hands propping her up. "No. Wondering about the past is like reading a book you already threw in the fire. I'd rather write what comes next." Jack looked over. "And what comes next?" She didn't answer right away. Then she looked at him, and her voice softened. "Whatever we build with these hands, and no more running," he nodded slowly. "Then let's build something that won't ever need to be burned." The message arrived quietly, weeks later. Jack had been rerouting the power conduit when the comm panel blinked, a shortwave burst from an old contact in the Union. Just a name and a location, no message, no threat. Laius read it over his shoulder. "They want you back? They're offering a command post on the rim, maintenance lead, good pay, no danger." He looked at her. "I won't go if you don't want me to." She studied the panel, then him. "You should," she said, "if it's something you want." "And leave you here?" She smiled faintly. "I won't break in your absence." He paused, then reached into his belt pouch and pulled out the beacon she had given him. He placed it on the table between them. "You already made sure I could find my way home. I trust you to use it." They sat for a long moment in silence. Jack didn't take the offer. Instead, they repurposed the signal and turned it into a listening tower, an open invitation to those still stranded across the stars, voices left behind in ruin, exiles who had never been found. Laius called it the Lantern. The name stuck. Soon transmissions came in from other survivors, drifters, refugees, people like her, people who had been cast out, and slowly, one by one, they came. Not as soldiers or servants, but as builders, as kin. The outpost expanded, not fast, not loud, but real. Years passed. One night, under the silver bloom of 3 moons, Jack stood beside the beacon tower while Laius recorded a new message, her voice clearer now, stronger. She spoke not of vengeance or exile, but of the freedom in being seen, in being wanted. Not for what she was born into, but for what she chose to become. When she finished, she turned to him, her face illuminated by the soft pulse of the lantern. "Do you remember what I told you the day we escaped the junkyard?" Jack nodded. "You said helping you would make me enemies I couldn't see." She stepped closer. "You never once hesitated." He smiled, not even a little. Her hand found his, and they stood in the glow of the tower, together, no longer fugitives or orphans of broken legacies, but something new, not saved, not redeemed. Just home. At last.